Okay, today we're going to talk about abstract classes. I'm going to create an abstract class called GameObject. And GameObject is going to be a class where I will never create an instance of GameObject, but what I will do is I'll pack a lot of code I need in here for my game, and then inside of this I can have methods that are public. I can have abstract methods, or I can have fields in here, and I can have other classes that are going to extend GameObject. So for instance, if I have an enemy class that extends GameObject, this is a subclass superclass relationship, and that means that enemy is going to have access to all the code that's in the abstract class GameObject. So I can create an instance of the enemy, and I can create, for instance, all of my different kinds of game objects. I can have a bullet, or I can have a tower, or I can have whatever I need in my game. I can extend this game object. Now there's a couple of advantages. One, as I've already said, I have all of this code that is in here that all of these guys are going to have access to now because they extend the abstract class, or the superclass in general. And then what I can do, the other big advantage is if I want to, I can create an array or an array list of type game objects. So let's say I say game object, and this is going to be an array of game objects, and I call it game objects. And now I can pack this with any kind of game object that I choose. So for instance, I can put in here an enemy object, or I can put in a bullet object, or I can put in a tower object, and I can take all my game objects because they extend this abstract class, and I can have my array, even though it's of type game object, I can extend all of these guys because they extend game object. Okay, and so we're going to start by looking at this real simple relationship. I've got a game runner, and if I open this up in the editor, I see that this is just a public class game runner. It has my main method, public static void main, and I'm creating a game object, and notice that this says enemy. So E1 is an enemy. I say new enemy, I give it a location, 200, 400, and I'm giving it a name that I'm sending it as a string. So 2 ints and a string, and this is being declared as type game object. And so the reason I can do this is because if I look back at game object, first of all, game object is abstract. So I said I can't make an instance of this particular class, but I've got 3 fields. I've got input parameters of x location, y location, and name, and I'm loading that into my local variables x, y, and name. Since this variable and this variable have the same name, I need to distinguish between them. So this guy refers to the input parameter, and this name refers to the name that's being declared in this class. Okay, moving on. If I look at my enemy class now, I have the keyword extend, so public class enemy extends game object. And so what's important about this is I don't have anything else going on in here other than a constructor. Just like game object, I'm passing in 2 ints and a string, but I'm immediately passing them in a superclass with the keyword super. So I pass in the x location, the y location, and the name, and now this compiles. And so we can see that this has this relationship. This other kind of arrow in blue jay is an arrow showing a relationship between a superclass and a subclass. Superclasses don't necessarily have to be abstract. In this case, my superclass is an abstract class called GameObject. And so now if I put some code in here, let's go ahead and see what happens if I put in, for instance, a toString method. Okay, so if I look at GameObject, I've put in this toString method, and it's very simple. It simply is a public method called toString, and it's going to return a string. And I simply say inside GameObject x equals, and I'm putting whatever the x coordinate is here, that's ultimately going to be the x location of my game object, and y equals, and then it's going to put the y location of my game object as well. Now notice, again, I'm not creating an instance of this particular class, but because the enemy extends it, I can come over here, and even though I have nothing in the enemy class other than I'm passing these values into the super, let's go ahead and see how I can use this back in the game runner. So in the game runner, I simply say system.out.println, and I take my enemy object and I say toString. Now, the interesting thing is the toString method is actually in the GameObject class, not in the enemy class. I compile this, it's fine, and if I were to run it, let's go ahead and come back here and run this and say main. Here we go, and it tells me the location, the X location and the Y location. I can also actually print out the string. Let's do that as well. I'm going to print out the name so we can see the difference, and I'll put another one in here in just a minute. So I'm going to go into my game object, and I'll say inside game object, X equals this, and I'll just simply add the name, and the name is equal to, let's give it a couple spaces here, plus name. And so now, again, compile it, it's fine. If I were to run this, it's going to give me the name of this guy, compile, run, and we'll see that I'm in enemy 1. So let's create another game object. In this case, in the game runner again, I'm going to come back, open this up, and I'm going to create some other type of, well actually, let's just start off with a different enemy. I'll call this enemy 2. So enemy 2 is going to have a different location. Just remember 900, 900. I'll call this guy enemy 2. And so now, if I were to take this and copy it and say E2, toString, now if I compile it, again, everything's fine. And if I come in here and run this guy, it's going to give me toString being run from my first game object, enemy 1, and toString being ran, even though I've had this method only once inside my GameObject class. So this is the toString method being run from the GameObject class. Okay, so now I've made another class, and I called it Tower. I'm doing this one slightly differently. If I look inside Tower, let's go back and review enemy real quick. If I open this guy up, I notice that I've got enemy, and I've got 3 guys passing in. I don't have any fields in here. I'm just sending these directly up to the superclass, but I did a little bit differently in the tower. If I look over here in the tower, notice that I made private field XY, which are both ints, and then I have a string called name, and I'm setting these in equal here. I'm also sending them up here. So let's go ahead and see if I still have access to my toString method. If I come over here in my game runner, I actually did make, instead of E2 here, I have T1. I'm creating a tower object. So let's go ahead and give this guy the location 100, 100. I'm calling him tower 2. And so now I'm saying system.out.println E1 toString, and now T1 toString. So let's go ahead and see what happens. That compiles, and this should work just like before. I've just added one more type of or class, one more type of object, and so if I run this, I'm going to see that I've got an enemy and I've got a tower. I've got different locations for each of these, but I'm writing these both from inside of GameObject. What would happen if I took my toString class and I took that out verbatim here, went ahead and copied it, and I transferred that same guy into my tower class? So let's come down here and say public string to string, and now I'm inside my tower class. So I'll say inside tower, and I have the same thing. I've got X and Y, except X is here. Actually, let's just for the fun of it, let's change X. Let's go down here and say X plus equals 15 and Y plus equals 15, and let's see what ends up printing. Am I going to print out the values that I'm sending in here? Remember, I'm sending in, when I make my first tower object, I send in 100, 100. So will it print out GameObject 100, 100, or will it print out inside tower 115, 115? Let's find out. So I go ahead and compile this, and I run it, and sure enough, it says inside tower. So even though I have a toString method in the GameObject class, Java's going to choose the local one for my tower object, and it happens to be this. If I simply go back in and I were to get rid of this guy, let's say I come in here and I choose to just comment that guy out, compile it. Again, no syntax errors, and if I were to run this guy right now, he's going to do the same thing as before, except now he's running this toString method from GameObject, and notice I still have 100, 100, because that's what I send in originally.